and it's going to be recorded. But you have the opportunity to do it. Something that we do is like you can bring the problem or the challenge without actually telling us who the client is. So just tell me the same context, the same situation, and we'll try to solve that together. Okay. So super quick on this. You can find me on Instagram like this. You can find me by my name, which is easier. If you want to find me by my handler, that's more complicated. That's 22 A's, but you can try. And you can find me in inbound or in Fort Lauderdale in Florida or in Buenos Aires. I'm Argentinian. I have 10 years experience, a little bit more actually. And I founded Dreidel with Ari, who is here and he's my co-founder. And a bunch of other ventures like direct.com, Super Tech, which is like the largest ASICs repairing shop in Argentina. We did like Happy Agencies, that was like a white label agency for other agencies, and a few other ventures. So let's get to it. Today's agenda. We're going to know or to ask the question or what is a HubSpot solution architect, right? Is it a consultant or is it the person that goes to market? Is it revenue operations? So what is it? And the end of this will be that the HubSpot solution architect is more like a holistic thing. It's more like a little bit of everything. We will talk about the detective mindset, and that's when you get a request or a challenge from the client, how you can break that down, how you can like ask the right questions to actually know what the client is trying to do. Because most of the time, the clients will ask you something or will ask you to do something, but you will need to make some questions before actually taking action, because what the client asks, maybe it's not what he needs or what he says he needs. Okay. Number 3, we're going to try to think in layers. That will be, there is like a methodology, and you can adapt this to how you work, but there is a methodology to breaking this down into smaller problems and tackling this in a way that is easier to digest for, especially for very large projects. Okay, I will explain you this also in the presentation. Then we're going to talk about extended toolkit and technical decisions. So as a HubSpot solution architect, this goes beyond HubSpot, as I said. So you need to know HubSpot for sure, but you also need to know a lot of other tools. I mean, you will need to know how to connect with third-party tools, right? So you will need to know, sure, if I have a client has HubSpot, but this client has a database in MySQL or in Superbase, how do I connect to that database? And if the client is maybe has like another department in NetSuite or in QuickBooks for billing, how do you connect to that? Or if you need to migrate data, what is the right tool? So you need to know that as well. And if the client wants to implement AI, how do I do it scalable? And there are like many other scenarios where you need to know way beyond HubSpot to be able to respond to a whole question. And then adoption and governance. I mean, this is more for compliance, HIPAA, SOC 2, and how to actually execute and implement your plan for the client without failing, because you might be able to do like the best project ever, but it's also a challenge to try to implement something new in a 500 people company, for example, right? Or even if it's small, even if it's a 10 people company where like people are used to work in a certain way, you can bring something that is better and new, but you cannot do this overnight. Okay, so let's continue here. So what is a HubSpot solution architect? And again, it's a person who knows a little bit of everything, but specializes in HubSpot. And you will see this in a T-shaped skilled mindset. You will find this reference very often, where you have like a very wide knowledge of everything, but you specialize in something. And even within HubSpot, there are like some people who are like better at go-to-market, and people who are like better at like marketing or sales. Or in my case, I have like a technical background, so I'm better at like programming and developing. But that's like vertical knowledge, and then you know a little bit of the rest. So when you get like a request, you will know what people are asking for, and you will know who to route this for. Okay. Um, so there are like different type of people who work in HubSpot. right? And let's think of the difference, okay? The HubSpot admin is the person who just does like administration and consulting and maintenance. They work in a portal that is already configured, and that's it, okay? The consultant, usually it's more like at strategy level, but nothing goes beyond that. He's not executing anything in the portal. The RevOps manager is something that goes beyond this both of these ones. Usually it's more related to GTM and then unifying all the departments, but they might not have technical knowledge. In some cases they do, but when they do, actually they are solution architect. Okay. If the RevOps manager has knowledge of other verticals, right, beyond RevOps, that person became a solution architect, okay? Because that person has a more holistic view of everything in the company and they can provide strategic vision beyond RevOps, okay? So basically, that's the difference. T-shaped model skills model is what I just mentioned. There was like a nice diagram here, but it's basically a T where you can see like all the knowledge that you have, and the vertical is what you have like deep knowledge of. Okay. In this case, again, it could be, as I said, like go to market, or it could be something specific that you specialize on. And the T, that like the top part of the T is like where you all the other skills that you know. Okay. And it's very likely, again, that you know a lot of all these things, but you're not the best at anything. There is probably like a designer who designs better than you, and a developer who codes better than you, and a marketer who is better at Google Ads and UTMs than you. But at least you know what you're talking about. So as a solution architect, you will need to run discovery workshops. And by that, I mean, this is part of the detective mindset that I mentioned before. When it's very common that you get like a request from the client, and you need to say, okay, let's have a meeting, right? And that meeting will be with whoever requests you to do something, but also with other stakeholders. And stakeholders are usually not just the CEO or the board. It's also the end users. Can be the director of marketing, director of sales, but you definitely want to talk to whoever is using HubSpot on a daily basis, right? So if there is like a sales rep, an SDR, a BDR, whoever is using HubSpot, you definitely want to talk to them, because at the end of the day, these are the people who are going to use HubSpot the most. The CEO and the private equity firm, they just use HubSpot for sure, but for reporting, like maybe they use like 10% of the time. However, like the sales rep, I you can bet that they use HubSpot way more. So you want to interview them. So you can go upfront to this person and say, I want to talk to your SDRs. Just pick a few that you trust and just book a call with them. Okay. Ask them how they would like to have this tool working better. And then you will need to define what they're saying makes sense and what it doesn't, right? That will be your job to filter those to filter that feedback. Okay. I already some people trying to join. There we go. Hi, Francis. So then you will need to make tool selection decisions. Okay. And as I said, when you are a HubSpot solution architect, you need to define what are tools you are going to use for this company. A very common scenario, you talk to a company and it happens that they use HubSpot, NetSuite, Make, Zapier. They use WordPress, and maybe they have their landing pages in Unbounce. And when you start like counting, they have like 30 different tools and 400K a year in licenses. So there are like multiple reasons why you want to fix that, right? It's much easier if you have like everything under the same roof. So everything's in HubSpot. Plus, when you are even like, if you're like a HubSpot rep and you're like selling HubSpot, maybe they say, why will I pay like 100K more per year? And actually, you're not. I mean, the client is not, because you can say, no, you're not. You're just replacing using 10 different tools for just maybe 2 or 3. So you need to also ask those questions to know, hey, what is this company using? You will need to see you will need to oversee implementation teams, of course, and you need to ensure governance and adoption. We will see this later. So, what kind of clients do you usually get, right? And of course, there will be like some scenario that I'm not counting here, but you can get, I would say, these 5 buckets, okay? And I guess here we have like pretty much all of them. So RevOps specialist, this is a person who knows HubSpot a lot, and this is a person who knows revenue operations. So Usually, this is someone who is in charge of the RevOps team at the company. They know what they need, and they just need your help for execution. So in those cases, the conversations are like very technical. That flows better. Uh, and maybe instead of like having 2 hours conversations with just like 15 minutes, you already know what you need to do, and that's it. So that's one scenario where you are talking to someone technical on your company, and probably that's the best scenario. Business owners. Business owners, it's also very common, but especially when it's like a small company, that's someone who has HubSpot, but they are not an expert, and they don't have to be an expert in HubSpot. They don't have to be a revenue operation expert, and they don't have to be an expert in developing. So maybe they're like very good at manufacturing something, and they really know their business, but they don't know anything else. So you need to ask the right question here, and you need to bring it down to someone who is not an expert in this matter. They might be an expert in something else, but not in this. So very common in small business ventures, you need to ask the right questions here. Usually those business owners, they just, I mean, because it's usually a small business, everything ends up in, I just want to be more efficient and I just want to sell more, right? So everything ends up there for most of the time. Then you have VC and PE firms. Usually here you will get people who want just reports of like their investments. So your conversations will be around, how do I report on this? How do I track on that? So a lot of work around reporting when you're talking to VC and PE firms. The difference with executives, which is the second one, is that the VC and PE firms usually use like multi-account, or they manage multiple accounts. So it's very common that you need to make some integration with like Power BI or something, because maybe they're managing 20 different companies, and you need to normalize the data, and you will need to say, okay, well, here are like your 20 companies. You need to here you can compare them, but for that you need to clean the data, organize it, export it to something external, to like Power BI or something, and then allow them to compare apples to apples. Executives, it's just under that company. Again, they are not going to use HubSpot a lot. Most of the time, it's reporting, because they need to respond back to investors. And employees, well, here's more about the usage. Here's a lot about like make it user friendly. I mean, if you make it super hard or complicated, even if it produces the best data, they won't use it. So here there is a trade-off. If you want like the best reports, you will probably need to make like very long forms, where like the employees or SDRs or BDRs will need to click like a ton of things. So you will use that data later on to produce a report. But you need to talk to them first, because if you do that, they won't want to use the tool. So the question that you usually ask them is, hey, are you currently happy with HubSpot? What are tools you use when before HubSpot? Or if you were like the founder, what will you change? And they will tell you, oh, like there's this thing that is a pain in the ass, and I want to change it. So you want to write that down, and if you can just find some middle ground between what the stakeholders want and what the employees want, well, that's a win for everyone. So for sure, you want to ask employees. Here are like some questions that I usually ask. Um, there are like a ton more, and it will depend on many things. But you can ask, for example, what is the typical sales cycle length, and where do bottlenecks occur? And that one is very interesting, because sometimes they say that the bottleneck occurs in one place, and it's not true, but not because they are lying. It's just like they thought that. So, but it's interesting to ask them what they think. Um, then what data do reps need at each stage? That's also important when you're like making diagrams. And there are more. Here I did another one for marketing that says, well, how do you measure campaign success? Are you using UTMs? You can ask them, how do you use life cycle stages? And you will be surprised that some people don't even know that life cycle stages are a thing. Do you want to explain the difference between deal stages, life cycle stages, and lead status stages? So all these three things are very important. In some companies are not even like important. I mean, if it's like just a 5 people company, maybe using like 3 different variables is an overkill. But for big companies, when you're working with like a ton of data, maybe they're not using it and they should. So ask questions about what they consider an MQL, ask questions what they consider like an opportunity, ask them how they nurture leads, and then you will put that in the diagram. Okay. Service. Again, this is in case that they use service. Okay. Net promoter score, uh, CSAT, I mean, service level agreements. There are like a bunch of things that you will need to ask. Okay. Let me see here. Like in the meantime, while you see that, so Ari was sending like a few polls there. For the new ones, remember, like there are like some polls that Ari is publishing. Oops. So if you want to respond them, you can click in the bottom right corner. There are like 9 dots, and when you click the 9 dots, you click on polls and you can respond those ones, or you can leave your questions by clicking in Q&A. So again, bottom right corner, 9 dots, and then either polls or Q&A to leave questions, and I will try to respond all of them. Okay, so I continue. So this is more for service, and this is for operations. Okay, this one for operations is probably the most technical one, because HubSpot now is the core. I mean, of the system of a company, right? It used to be just a CRM, and then they added like marketing automation, and now it's like a lot of things. And if you have like all the hubs, it could be a ton of things. But as we saw, the first stage is to have like a nice data layer. Well, maybe it's in a different, we'll see later, but basically have like the 6 steps. So you need to organize all the data into one big bucket. That one big bucket is HubSpot. So here you need to ask like a ton of questions. What tools are you using? How are you currently connecting that? And you will need to find out a way to centralize that in HubSpot as much as you can. Okay. So at the very least, they have a website, and in many cases, it's not even HubSpot. So you have like sources from HubSpot. I mean, sources from the website that you need to ask, like, are they even being tracked? Like very common, like they have let's say like in a small company. A small company will have WordPress most of the time. So they have WordPress and HubSpot. And how are they tracking like the activity there? Like they embedded HubSpot there. They have like Google Analytics. How about organic traffic? So even in the smallest scenario, you always need to merge or to sync stuff. Okay, red flags in client conversation. This is very common. Sometimes they want to, or us, maybe we go to the area to try to over customize a lot of things. So let's make it perfect. Let's make like super perfect that the questions are asked when you move like one deal from one stage to another. Let's make it super clear and like dynamic, like depending on the questions, we are going to show like different following questions, and depending on what they ask first. Sometimes that's an overkill, right? So start small, try to fix like, just have like quick wins and deliver. It's better to deliver like small things, like a very long one with a lot of features that takes longer. And this is very common to app development. I know if we have like developers here, but it's the same idea. You divide it in sprints, and you can deploy or release these things in very small features instead of like waiting like another week to release all together. So focus on small things and don't over customize anything. No need to reinvent native features. Okay. Very common with WhatsApp that they want to make an integration with WhatsApp with the API, because there is like this little thing that it doesn't have. So now we're talking about like making an API integration with Operations Hub, 50 grand in development, when HubSpot has an integration with WhatsApp. So the first question will be there is like, number one, is it like really necessary? Is there like another way? Is there like HubSpot already offering you this? So for that, you need to have like a holistic understanding of what is at your table, right? So what tools you have. Another one will be like simple ones. Some people don't even know that HubSpot has like calling feature. And maybe they go and they purchase Ring Central. Then in some cases it is necessary, but in a lot of cases it is not. So you can just tell them, hey, HubSpot already has that. let's not try to reinvent anything. Blaming bad deals, bad leads. Sorry. Okay, this could be a lot of things. Bad leads is, let this should be with a detective mindset. I mean, let's ask why. Why do you have bad leads? I mean, is it because the ads are wrong? You're targeting the wrong audience? And again, we're here going beyond HubSpot. Or is it because you're not creating or qualifying those leads correctly? So it could be a ton of things. Thinking in layers. Okay, these are like the six the 6 layers to do this that I propose. And anyway, most people can do it differently, but I like it to think it like this. And let's start with the first two, because those ones are like the ones that can be confusing. Like, what's the difference between data layer and data model? Well, the first thing that you need to ask to a client, or the first thing you want to know is, do we have data, and is the data correct? What does it mean? That means maybe we have like 1,000,000 contacts, but maybe they're like duplicated, and it doesn't matter where they are. Maybe they're migrating from somewhere else. My question is, do we have data and the data is good? Or maybe we have like numbers that don't have the country code. Some of them are duplicated, spaces, special characters, maybe records that say like test. So we want to know that. And the second part is how, that's the data model. Now the data model is this data well organized? So the first one is it correctly typed, no typos? Is that correct? And the second one is it correctly organized? So for example, if you are working for a veterinary and they have pets, do we have like a property that says pet name, pet breed, pet weight, pet something? Or it's just like there in notes? If it's in notes, maybe you have like all the data and it's super complete. You have like a good data layer, but a terrible data model, right? Because good luck trying to extract all those things. Then, well, now you can do it with somehow better with AI, but still it's not the best scenario. Then platform fit. Very common to find accounts that have enterprise hubs that they shouldn't, right? So we all love HubSpot, and we want to sell it as partners as well. But we need to be smart for the client in what hubs they really need. I will give you one example that makes this very clear. There is something called HubSpot CRM UI extensions. It's great. I mean, you can customize tools on the user side, so you can make like custom CPQs, custom quote generators. You can do a lot of things. So for that, you need an enterprise tier of anything. You can have like Service Hub, Marketing Hub, whatever. So you just need one thing. So if you need that, are you going to tell the client to upgrade to Marketing Hub Enterprise, which is not particularly affordable? Or are you going to tell the client, hey, just keep Marketing Hub Pro and just give me one seat of Enterprise Hub, Service Enterprise Hub that you're not using, that is just $100, and you give them like a better idea on how to not spend like 100K a year extra for just one thing. So you need to know, hey, if I just tell them to use Service Hub one license, I mean just one seat, it's 100 or $150 compared to thousands per month. So that's also when you audit HubSpot that you need to check if that's the right thing to do. Ecosystem. So existing tools. So again, some people have like Urkel, Ring Central, and HubSpot. Why? I don't know. Maybe at the time it made sense. It made sense for something. Now maybe you don't. So just in the first question, probably in the first discovery call, you need to ask them to mention all the tools that you have, and you put it in a Miro or in a ClickUp whiteboard, and then you start asking, hey, how much are you paying for this? Are you really using this? And then you can start like striking out the ones that you are not going to use. Prioritization. I will show you this in a second. I use something called the Eisenhower diagram, or a simplified version of that, which is basically a matrix where you can divide what is urgent and what is important. So that's very important to start with the right foot on long-term clients or long-term projects. So you ask them, you ask the clients, hey, tell me the 10 things that you want to do. and you just put them into little boxes. And then in the matrix, that I just simplify into two buckets, urgent and important, because they're all important. But what I meant with that is which one do we need to do right now, and which ones are important, good to have, but are not really urgent. So you do that. For example, I don't know. I'm not getting leads for some reason. I stopped getting leads because the integration broke, and leads are like staying there forever. And I want to do like a new blog. Well, I mean, the blog is important, but the other one is urgent. So you want to divide those things. And then you have like the stakeholder engagement. As I said before, talk to everyone that is important to talk to. Okay. And that includes employees. Sometimes employees are even more important than executives, even though the executive is the one who is like making the decision to hire you. 100% you want to talk to employees. Okay. Best practices, documentation, 100%. Naming convention. This one is interesting because sounds obvious, but it's not for some reason. It's not just customizing HubSpot and like creating like the properties. When you give them like the document, you need to tell them, hey, this is how you're going to work. And the naming conventions are for the backend part on how you are going to call properties, and I will show you that in a second. But also on how they're going to write like new deals. So when they create a new deal, well, they need to call it somehow, and maybe it has to be name of the deal, name of the company, name of the person, country. I don't know, whatever is accurate to what your client does. But when you create like properties, don't just write them. When you just let me show you this. I think I should show you this. Let's see if I can show you one perfect example with a demo account. Wait, let me show you this. When you create a property here, because this is a very common error, let's go to properties. Go to properties, and I'm going to create a new one. So let's say I want to know last visit date. Last visit date. Let me set this one. So you want to ask the last visit date for a particular place. Let's say that place is oh no, let's say it's from one of the hospitals. You're working for a large clinic. They have one location, and you want to know when was like this person last visit that clinic. So you can do it this way. But what if they have like 10 different locations? Well, you can do location one, right? So you see here how this is actually happening. You want to make sure like when you create this label, this will stay like this. I mean, the internal name, because for some reason you will know that this is for location one. You can put it in a group, for example. So let me copy this, and then let me remove that. You see how it says last visit date, right? But this was the last visit date for one particular location. So then you edit this, and in the database, it will be stored like this, but the label will be this. Why is this important? Well, believe me, when you have like 500 properties, it will start being important, especially if you're like then working with integrations, because then you're going to send a webhook with a lot of data that says location one something, location one something else, location one something else, and you happen to have like 20 per place. And if you didn't do that, you will regret very easily. Okay, quickly you will regret of that. So have a convention of doing this. Your developers will appreciate that a lot. Of course, divide this in groups, but that will be for your internal use. Okay. So here, let me go back again. Pilot programs, when working with large companies, don't do it fast. Don't tell anyone to adopt that right away. Let's say they have like 20 sales reps, just use 5, and then you expand to the other ones. And then visualization, map data model before implementing. Let me show you something. We use ClickUp, right? And there are like other tools that you can use. I do recommend this one a lot, and because it's like an all-in-one, I have tried everything. I have tried Miro, which is great, and I have tried. I mean, Miro is just for whiteboarding, and that's it. ClickUp is more like a task manager, and Asana, Monday, all these ones are like task manager as well. But what is cool in ClickUp is like you have also whiteboards here and even chat and a lot of other stuff. So when you're working with someone, you want to make diagrams, okay? You will make like, and I will show you this later, but just to give you a quick glance, you want to make BPMN diagrams, and that goes for business process modeling and notation. So you will like make like the flow, how like their business works. That's you asking them, hey, tell me how your business works. Tell me from the very first moment where like you get a lead, or even before that, to the last one where you close it, or even after that when you try to upsell them or cross sell them or something. Just tell me the whole process, and you will use something called BPMN for that. Okay, pretty simple. It's like those things about like the circles and the squares. You just need to know like a few shapes and arrows, and that's it. Okay, but it's super clear and super good for both you and your client. Okay, and then there is this one, which is the Eisenhower matrix that I told you before. This is the original Eisenhower matrix. How I do it is like I simplify these four matrix into just two buckets again. Urgent, important, that's it. You make sticky notes, and then one goes here, one goes to the other way. That's it. If you want to use these four, up to you. But that's what I'm recommending. And then once you have like a big plan, you will use something like this, where you will organize them in what is area for improvements, problems and root causes, possible solutions, measure of success. And again, this doesn't apply to everything. I mean, if you're working on a very small project, this is an overkill. Okay. If you are working on something big, yes, you want to start with the right foot from day one. Okay. Let's continue with this. Let me show you here. Boom. Okay, so scaling issue from inconsistent data, very common. I mean, if you didn't check like the first stage and the data is not good, the data model is not good, once you're scaling, you will start like noticing those things. Okay, automation chaos without documentation. You can even add notes in workflows. I don't know why people don't do it, but you should. Otherwise, the next person after you in the company will have a very hard time trying to figure out what those 500 workflows do. So think of what is going to happen with the next person that is going to maybe take your role after a few years, because maybe you will go into a next company and you need to keep things organized and clean. So be detailed, just write everything as if it was your first time in the company. And then training. I mean, again, you can do like the best implementation ever, but you want to do training. Okay. These are what do these three diagrams. As I said, BPMN. Here, this is from development. I mean, if you're a developer, you will use this a lot. This is for data models to know what is what, and the Eisenhower matrix. In my opinion, these three cover like 90% of the challenge in most of the cases. There might be others that you can always use. I'm just recommending these ones. This can take you far. Okay. Beyond HubSpot. Okay. You need to know a lot of other tools. Again, you need to connect HubSpot to other stuff. So it's good that you know Zapier. It's good that you know Make.com. If you're working with someone that is more like an enterprise that needs compliance and maybe working with like on-premise database, you're going to probably use Workato, right? If you are going to migrate a ton of data, you're probably going to use N8N. Maybe there's a startup that is using Salesforce for customer service, and then you're going to use HubSpot for marketing. So you need to use both. And you cannot be an expert in everything, but at least you need to know a little bit. Then you have Ariel. Then you have Snowflake. Snowflake is more for data warehouse. Do you need Snowflake? Well, I don't know. Are you working with a law firm that is using, I don't know, maybe 5 million records and processing data in real time? Well, you do need Snowflake. Are you working with a law firm that only has like 1,000 clients? You don't. Okay, so you need to know when to use one thing or the other. Do you need Databricks? I mean, are you going to use AI and process like a ton of data and do something with that? Well, you might be needing to use Databricks. ChatGPT, but not ChatGPT as in like the regular ChatGPT that we all know. ChatGPT offers an API, and you can use that for a lot of interesting things, such as I don't know, you want to identify people by, let me give you an example. One person wanted to um, automatically divide whether that person was a man or a woman just by the name. You just send the first name and the last name to ChatGPT, and if it's like Melissa, it gives you like it's a female. If it's Francis, it's a man, right? So you can do that with the API, and you can use that to clean up the data, and you don't need to use just ChatGPT. I mean, there is like Anthropic, there is DeepSeek, there is like a bunch of them. You will need to just know that they exist and when to use one or the other to solve certain challenges. Clearbit was taken over by HubSpot. Now it's part of Breeze. But there are like others like Clay that is pretty cool. You need to know that if you're talking to a marketing team and BDRs, you might want to use that one. Okay. Then other tools. It's good that you know Figma for prototyping. If you can talk to designers and they are working on a landing page, or you want to make an MVP of something and you want to put your idea there, well, Figma is not that complicated. At least the basics you can learn them. Then Miro is for whiteboards. I use it. I mean, it's nice, it's good. A lot of people use it. Like you can do like whiteboards, just like the one that I show you. But the one that I show you is on ClickUp, which is my preferred tool, because besides all that, it comes with like tasks and all the things. And then there is Asana, and there is like a ton more. Security and compliance. I'm just putting 2 examples, but they're like a bunch here. Are you going to work with a company that needs to be SOC 2 compliance? Well, there are like companies like Banta, like SecureFrame, that can help you do that. Maybe the company needs to be HIPAA compliant, and it's not only enabling the HIPAA compliant sensitive data feature from HubSpot, which HubSpot has that, but you also need a layer for auditing that, and you need SecureFrame, you need Banta, you need something. So big word like these tools exist. Then what happens if you're working with a company that needs secure access? Well, the most common one is Okta, but there are like a bunch more. There is one open source that we use internally that is called Castor, so you can have single sign-on with that. And to be frank, most of the companies need to use single sign-on. I mean, even if it's a 5 employees company, it's much better to have them under single sign-on. So when you fire someone or when you hire someone new, you just give them access to one thing, and that's it, right? Whereas if you have like to give them access to 10 different tools, well, it takes more time. If there is a security problem there, so if you can use single sign-on, use it. Okay. This is important. As consultants, sometimes we don't know the whole situation of the company, and maybe we don't need to have. I mean, they're not going to share it with us. But when you're saying, hey, let's go with this 550K per month contract with someone, well, I don't know, would you do that if you were going to pay 50K per month? So you need to think as if you were the one who's going to pay, as if you were like the owner of the company. So you can offer the best tool, but maybe it's not at the right moment. So try to make it like efficient. Always think, hey, is there a way where I can do the same for less money? So for sure they will want that. So always try to think if it's coming from your pocket. Technical decision criteria. Okay. How do you know when to use a custom property and when to use a custom object? Okay. So I did this table here, but hold on, someone Ari call me, and Ari is all right. People can see my screen good. Hold on.
Yeah, everything was working fine.
Okay, I just received a phone call from you. So give me 1 second. Okay, feel free to ask questions here. You can always go here to the bottom right corner, remember, and stop me whenever you want. Again, the 9 dots, you go to polls or you go to Q&A and you ask a question there, like here, for example.
They also open the messages so people can leave a message on the chat.
You can also leave a message on the chat. Here is a question. Oops, I did a typo there, but it doesn't matter. So I was going to explain when to use custom properties and when to use custom objects. If you are if you're going to represent, for example, a pet, right, which is a thing, that's a custom object. I mean, it's self-explanatory from the name, and this is the same concept from development of like object-oriented programming. It's pretty much the same. I mean, you represent something as an object, right? So a person is a contact, right? So a company like Coca-Cola will be under the company object, and that's why you have like people as contacts. So John and Jane Doe can be two contacts, and then Coca-Cola is the company, and that's the relation. Now, if there is something that is not represented there, it's neither a person nor a company, then you need the custom option. Okay. The perfect example will be the veterinary, where you need to have like the pet object, or maybe you are working with a car a car dealer shop, and you can make a car be a product, or you can have your own custom object that is a car. And another uh, way, or like another important factor on when to decide, hey, this needs a custom object, is when you need activity in a timeline. So a property is not meant for have activity on a timeline, right? So if you need to know all the history of what happened with that particular object, well, in that case, you want to create a custom object. Okay. So, for example, let's say the car. You want to know when this car was sold, but you also want to know how many times this car came back for being repaired. And you want to know how many times this car was sold to someone, right? So those things happen in a timeline. So you want to create a custom object because you will have like this layout from HubSpot where you have like on the left like the properties and on the right like the relations, but in the middle you will have the activity. So do you want to track things on time? Do you want to track what happens uh, through the history of that object? That's a custom object. Okay. So small challenge here. This one is a bit more complicated, but I want to hear how you think that you will do it. Let's say a client needs to track multiple payments for a single deal. This could be anywhere from 1 to 50 payments, each with its own amount and date. So, common example: when there is a client who sells 10-year contracts leasing, or some kind of contract that can be 10 years, and they arrange the payments in multiple ways: once per year, just one payment, two payments per month. So in 10 years, you have like a ton of payments, and the dates can be different. So what do you do? Do you just create like properties like, oops, sorry, can we go back? Do you just create like 50 properties that say payment one, payment two, payment three, up to 50? What if they are 51? And you also need to create like payment one date, payment two date, payment three date. Is that what you're going to do? Or do you put them in HubDB? Do you put them in a custom object, an external tool? Or can you create like a poll for this? Let's see if I can do it. Hold on, I will create a poll.
Sure.
Want to know
I can
what
do it.
you
I can
think.
do it.
So I will create a poll out of this, and feel free to ask me a question there if you don't understand the challenge here. But I want to know what you think. Just to recap, you have a company that needs to store to know the date of up to 50 payments. It's not always 50. It could be 10. It could be one. Um, and they need to know how much they need to pay and when. How do we do this? I will give them a few minutes to think, or maybe just a minute. See, Ari is writing the question here. Ari is about to send the poll. I will give you one more minute. Hi, Daniel. You just arrived in time. I'm preparing a poll for this challenge. And again, last one, and then I give you the answer. Uh, you have a client that needs to track multiple payments for a single deal. It could be 1 to 50, and technically it could be even more. Um, do you create like 50 properties for the payments? And do you create like 50 properties for the dates? Or do you use HubDB, use a custom object, use external tool? What do you do? Remember, like you can also have the chat. You can write the chat. Oops, here I am. So what do you do? One knows here. Yeah, there we go. There we have the poll. If you go to the poll at the very bottom, what will you use? External tool. Got one person voting for external tool. HubDB. Keep voting. The person who said like external tool, can you write in the chat what tool, if you know, and why? Custom object. Someone did custom object. We have 2 HubDB. Just do one more second. Okay, so we have 2 HubDB, 1 custom object, and 1 external tool. And the answer really depends, but I will give you each case. Probably the most solid answer, if the person has HubDB, and that's why I say it depends, because maybe they say, but I am a starter, I don't have HubDB, so that's another challenge. But let's say that they have everything. Sure, try to use HubDB, because you can create a table, and you can make the relations there, and you can somehow make like an integration that they enter 1, 2, or 3, or like 1,000 different payments. If you make the properties, the problem will be that you will quickly end up having an object with a very long thing, with a very long list of properties. So if they want to know, hey, how much is the payment 17, they need to scroll down to payment 17, and then good luck for you trying to do reporting on that. So most of the cases, yes, the answer is HubDB, because it's a table. Now, if they don't have HubDB, well, maybe you can use, let's say, custom object. For example, in that case, what I will try to do is I will try to divide each payment in a custom object. Okay. So that's why I'm saying it depends, right? You can also get creative and say, okay, this deal has 25 different payments. And then you make a workflow that creates like 25 custom objects related. I mean, it's the same custom object, but 25 different instances of the same custom object associated to that deal. So now you have the association, and each custom object or each instance of the custom object can have only 2 properties: payment date, payment amount, and then it's all relations. That's it. So yes, you can also do custom object. Will I prefer HubDB? Probably in most cases, but in some cases you can't. So it's good that some people said like custom object. External tool. Well, what happens if they say like, hey, I have NetSuite? Well, don't try to overkill this. Use that. I mean, use NetSuite. I mean, it's meant for that. Maybe use QuickBooks. Maybe you want to put it on a spreadsheet. So yes, it depends on the case. Advanced property features. I mean, you need to know like these things exist. Okay. I got like a lot of questions about like parent-child companies or parent-child contact or relations in general. But just so you know, you have calculated properties that save you the hassle of trying to do a workflow. You just make like this property is the result of this plus this other property. And then you have association labels, which are like to mark or to explain how an object is related to another one. Let me give you an example. If you can have 3 contacts, and the 3 contacts is mother, the mother, the father, and its two siblings, right? So they don't associate in the same way, even though they are like contacts, because all of them are contacts. The relation from the son to the father is like, it's like the parent from one from the son to the parent, but it's the son on the other way around. So it's not just like any relation. So you associate them to mark that. In more like a business situation, you will have, for example, a relation where like one is the stakeholder and the other ones are like the employees. And yes, that could be a position, but maybe the same person can be the trustee of a trust fund, but at the same time they can be the founder or the investor or whatever at a different company. So maybe they associate to a company in a way and they associate to another company in a different way. So that's why you need association labels, and you will use this a lot in workflows. HubDB versus custom objects, similar to what we said. If you want something, I would say more simple, usually custom object. Plus, it comes with all the features around that, like the timeline, associations. HubDB usually comes as complementary, like around something. You want to add like extra data, metadata. That's where you use HubDB. Here you need to define when you use Marketing Hub, Sales Hub, Service Hub, similar to what I said before. You want to know when are you going to use each of these hubs and whether they are necessary or not, right? Here it says CMS Hub, but it's Content Hub. Real world case study. Let's say you have, let's say in automotive, right? Like, as I said, you have like the data model and you need to automate a lot of stuff. So if they are selling cars, are you going to to use products, or are you going to create a custom object? Well, in most cases, you will use both. Something very common is the product is just for the sale, but since they do a lot of like work after you sell the car, what you do is like when you close a quote, that object for that product automatically creates an instance of a custom object of that car. So what you will do is just sell, I don't know, you sell a Lamborghini, but you sell like 10 Lamborghinis per year. So then you need to have like each Lamborghini with as a custom object, but maybe you have like license plate and you will have who is the owner. So that's why you want to create a custom object, because you want to keep track of what you sold that goes beyond the the um, the transaction per se. Okay. How about in SaaS? Well, software as a service, these ones are my favorite because you can do a lot of things here. When it comes to services, you're like more constrained in what you can do. When it comes to services, a lot of things happen offline, and it doesn't mean that you cannot do anything. But when it's a SaaS, you can do a lot of magic here because everything happens online. So you can do the data model. What is the data model? Well, usually, and this is very easy to understand, the data model is pretty close to the same table that you have in your software. Probably in your software, if I go there to and someone here has a SaaS, you go to your SaaS and you open the users table. They're like columns. It will be pretty much the same, plus some extra data, plus the Facebook pixel, plus the Google ID, plus the HubSpot ID, like that kind of things. But then you can automate a lot of stuff, because you can automate when someone when someone log in, when someone signed up, when there was like a payment that was canceled, a payment failed, when someone is visiting your site too often, you can do a lot of things, and you will do that with HubSpot events, just by basically configuring what happens in your app, sending events to HubSpot, and HubSpot events is a thing. Let me show you. If someone has a SaaS, they will appreciate that. Let me show you. If you go here, events, custom events, you see how you can create stuff. You can create user sign up, user failed payment, something happened, and it's very easy to do it in HubSpot and then use this with workflows. So this is just for storing the events, and you can do it like very easily. You see, you can use the visualizer, which is like a way to just, it will give you like a widget and it will take you to your website, and you can say, hey, when someone visited the pricing page, that's an event. So you can use that for lead scoring, for example. If someone visited the pricing page 10 times in a week, well, give them some kind of like lead score or something, because they might be interested if they did that. But then you have like via API or via webhooks. You can do it in many ways. Let's continue here. Uh, here. And I'm almost at the end of this. Let me show you full screen. Okay. So let me give you another example. And Ari, you can make, I don't know if you can make like an open question in this thing, or people can just answer in the chat. But here's the challenge: your
Yeah, the chat
client
is
is a
open,
SaaS.
so they can answer you.
Okay, so you can send a message there, so everyone sees the chat just at the bottom right corner. So your client is a SaaS company with its own proprietary platform. They need to sync customer usage data, subscription information, and user activity from their platform accurately in a real time into HubSpot for sales and marketing purposes. How will you approach this integration? I mean, what tools and strategies will you propose to ensure seamless data flow? And here you can mention anything if you want. If someone knows the answer and wants to give like a an idea of how to do it, you can
Right,
send it.
I can open the mics if you want.
Open it if someone wants to speak. Sure. So how will you do it? You can use Segment. You want to use webhooks. You want to use an API. You want to use an N8N. You want to use Workato. Um, any ideas?
You should be able to open your mics
Yeah.
or write in the chat.
And I will give
Can
the
you let
answer
us know?
in a
Oh
few
yeah, there you
seconds.
go. There you go. Yeah, they can.
Segment, yes. And the answer is always it depends. I mean, sure, segment is a good. What does segment solve? Well, segment solves the hassle of having to merge a ton of data from different platforms. They organize it into one nice bucket, and then you distribute that. That's what segment solves. And they're like that are alternatives as well, but segment is the most popular. So if you have your users going to your tool, right, to your platform, you probably have like a user ID in your platform, but you also have a landing page in HubSpot where you run Facebook ads and Google ads and LinkedIn ads. How do you merge all that data? Because you have like the ID from LinkedIn, the ID from Google, the ID from your HubSpot account, the ID from, well, Simon will give this another ID as well, and you have IDs from everywhere. How do you tell your system, hey, all these IDs are from the same person? Well, you use segment, or you can use, I mean, if you want, you can use this. I mean, you just add if you want to do it manually, right? I mean, you could like send all that to HubSpot and you create the properties. Some of them are already out of the box, like Facebook IDE and Google IDE and all these things. But maybe there is no like user ID from your portal, so you can have like um, a property that says platform user ID. You send a webhook and that's it. Or you send everything to segment that has like a super nice UI. You tell them, hey, this is a user and this is the schema of the user, and then you just make a destination to HubSpot where like everything merged, and now it just completes everything in your properties. Okay, so those are the things that you can do in SaaS that you cannot do in anywhere else, because when you are like working with a law firm, you don't have the data. You do have some of the data. I want to say you can still use segment, for example, if you are using some kind of like external marketing that you cannot track, but they give you some spreadsheet. Well, in those cases, yes. But this is the perfect scenario. Adoption and change management. Uh, how do you make them adopt what you're doing? Well, pilot programs for sure, right? Don't try to make all the company to adopt your tool from day one. It just won't happen. Then expand to additional teams. Plus, there will be like some objections because everywhere here in Argentina, in the US, in Mexico, and everywhere, people are afraid to change. So even if what you're showing them is great, they will be hesitant at first. So what you want to do is just go with like in a small group, the most confident ones, the ones that you know that like hey, they like to try new things. And once they are happy and maybe because of what you did, now they sell twice in half the time, naturally they will go to their colleagues or the colleagues will come to you and they will say, hey, I also want that. But don't shake the company. Okay. So slowly, then expansion, and then full deployment. And then, of course, there will be optimization. There will always be a part of like 30, 60, and 90 days where you will need to adjust because what made sense in your discovery calls, it won't make sense anymore when you actually test it or just because things change, right? So there's always an optimization phase. Um, you need to train them, of course, right? This is not in order because it looks like it's an arrow, but it's not. You need to train the executives, the manager, and operators, and in different ways because they use HubSpot and the tools differently. But yes, don't ship something without training them. I would recommend you never release something without saying, "Hey, I'm going to show you. I'm going to release this. Let's book a call, and I will show you." If you just release it, there will be a lot of misunderstandings of how these things work. Don't do that. I mean, just tell them this is going to be released next Monday. Let's book a call, and you release that there, and you show them. Otherwise, it will be chaos. Something that works well for big companies is like an internal champions program. Early adopters need to be rewarded with something, right? So try to make some kind of internal champion program. Okay, you can have like feedback collection. And there are like some tools that I would recommend you to do this that integrate with HubSpot. Um, but yes, try to encourage them to do it. You can send like announcement emails, a training deck, feedback surveys, champion playbooks. And remember again, this is not for everyone. You're working for a 4 people company. This is a total overkill. So you need to be reasonable also in terms of pricing because you cannot quote them like 100K if it's like a 5 people employees company. So this needs to make sense to them. This is for companies that well, this applies to everything, but especially for big companies, you have to have like a responsibility matrix. Who owns what? Who needs to respond to what? I mean, that's a pattern that you need to follow. Log everything. Privilege principle in plain English. That means don't make everyone super admin, right? Don't do that. I mean, if that person only needs to access these 2 or 3 features, that's the only thing they should do because that can go bad. I mean, it never happens until it does. So just prevent chaos, and least privilege principle means just give them access to what they need and nothing else. Bad conventions, as I said, remember what we said before. Okay, new field is a terrible way to do it, and then you can't change it. But look at this, suffix or prefixes. So try to do these things. Try to work with good compliance. GDPR, HIPAA, and SOC 2. Okay, you will need to try to map them to each of them. If you're working in Europe, you will use GDPR a lot. HIPAA is for, if you know them, it's for healthcare in the US. HubSpot supports all of this. You just need to be careful when you are working with sensitive information. If you need to store social security, well, there's something called sensitive data in HubSpot that allows you to do that. You just need to know that it is there and start with the right foot from day one and consider this in your diagrams. Okay. Um, I'm going to go fast here because I'm 10 minutes late and I don't want to retain you everywhere here. I want you to be able to ask questions if you have, but you need to know the capabilities of automations, and HubSpot allows you to automate a lot of things. So you can have like the basic automations where you can have like whatever it's offered in the workflows. But if you have Operations Hub, you can code that. So technically there is nothing you cannot do. So if you wanted to do custom coded actions, you can. If you want to have like a webhook integration where you either send something to an external tool with a webhook, or that tool sends that to HubSpot, HubSpot opens an API endpoint for webhooks. And then there will be like AI assisted logic that is probably coming soon, that is asking an AI what path to take. This is coming. I mean, it will happen. I don't know how accurate that will be, but it will happen. So a few examples. When the car is marked as sold, this is like an easy one. You can create like a new deal. You can remove it from the website. If you're using HubDB, you can trigger delivery process. You can go here with the SaaS. You can create a customer success task, like send a welcome email or talk to a person, call them. If the person is you can put the person at the help at the at risk list, and there is like a new feature from HubSpot called like health check or something like that. That is like the reverse of the lead scoring, but for service, that will allow you to know which clients are at risk. But before that, we used to do it with webhooks, sorry, with workflows. Then you can send an internal alert. Okay, you need to know all the capabilities of HubSpot. Like you can do like two-way synchronization with Operations Hub, that you can send webhooks, that has a super robust API, and you can connect to other APIs. And there's a marketplace that you can also use, which basically, if you can do it with the app marketplace, do it. Just keep it simple. But if you can't, there is a lot of other things that you can use. Okay, so just know that you have that at your availability. Data vault for real estate. Let's say you will have like companies and contacts, and deals will be the transactions. This is a representation of the BPMN diagram. This is a simplification of that. It's not respecting the BPMN model, but similar. So in real estate, you will have like contacts who buy. You will have sometimes contacts who sell. This is also very common for flippers or house buyers. Sometimes they have like companies who are like investors and companies who are like the ones who buy. How does Andres Morera ask? How does webhooks work? Okay, so a webhook is, to simplify, a webhook is just like a message that comes out of a tool and goes to another. That's it. Okay, between systems. But let me show you. A webhook is just like a signal, so you can send whatever you want. So webhooks are like super used. So let me give you an example. If you are in, let me go to automations. Let's create a new one. Let's go from scratch. Okay, and here custom events. You see, so you can have this when you receive a webhook. Okay, so for example, let's say you, when, let's say like new visitor, let's say like somehow you found a way to detect the face of someone in your company, and that will send a webhook to let you know that that client visited your store. So new visitor, right? This gives you, you see, a URL, right? So what that means, and I wanted to complete the whole thing to actually do it. This thing is what you're going to use to send the data. So you go to that or external tool, and you say, when this happens, send it here, and this will process the data. If you want, I can. It will take me like a few minutes, but basically, I can send the webhook here, and you will see what happens. Let me see if I can rapidly do it. Let me show you. This is developer territory, but let me show you. So, for example, I'm going to send. Oops. Let me put it this one here. Okay, so let's send a post request. And in the body, I'm going to send this again. This is for developers, but you just need to know that this exists. I'm going to send this JSON. Let me use ChatGPT and let's write ChatGPT. Write an example JSON payload for a visitor, for when a visitor walks into a store. You can um, use fake names and stuff. Keep it simple. Okay, you see? So this is what the this is like we're making this up, right? But this is what you could send. You can send whatever you want. So I will put it here. Let me put it here. And let me show you. Okay, let's send it. Give me an ID. Event receive. There we go. So look at this. You see? Store 001, store 001. Downtown Electronics, Downtown Electronics. So now you can go here and it's telling you, okay, what is this? I mean, well, now let's just, for simplifying, let's put like everything as text, but maybe one thing is a number and another thing is a date. So you can do stuff with this. Let me show you real quick here. We'll put all as text for simplifying. Text, 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 continue. And then how is this associated? Okay. So event email. And then you continue trigger and boom, now you have a workflow that works with a webhook. So if you're in a SaaS, for sure you're going to tell your developers, hey, just build me a payload that sends me, for example, a notification of the result of a payment, right? So yes, you could send it as an event, or you can do this. Maybe you want to do something with this. So that's how you do it. Let me go back here. Does that respond your question? Who asked Andres? Does that respond your question? This is to receive webhooks. Okay. If you wanted to send, you can also do that. Let me show you. Let's do. Let's just configure in. Hold on. Let's do. When a record is created, just I will make like any of this one. Next, 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 next. So if you want to send a webhook, you can go to send the webhook. You see, you click here, and now, well, they're like this is for developers, but basically they're like multiple methods, right? When you visit the website, you are sending a get method, but post is usually to create stuff. So if you're using make.com, for example, or Zapier or something, and it's not related, or maybe you're working with an external company and they tell you, hey, I need you to send me this. You manage hotels and yes, okay. So let's say you manage hotels and maybe there is like one tool of your hotel that doesn't have an integration with HubSpot, and you want to send from HubSpot to your hotel that there was a new reservation, for example, right? So what will you do? Well, let's say when there is a new reservation, so create new reservation in Andres Hotel, right? So let's do that. So what will be the trigger here? Well, the trigger will be when record created. No, actually no. Hold on. When a filter criteria is met, deal properties when is one, is close one, is equal to true, like you just want something, then you can get more creative, like because maybe it's not in every pipeline. Then let's say like your tool is giving you some documentation that says, hey, this is how you need to send it, and or you should send it to make.com. But sure, let's say you do it from here. You go here, you click on send a webhook, you click on post. Usually it's post what you're gonna do here, and this is how Andres hotel.com slash API slash slash API slash something and some letters, right? And here, authentication, sometimes this gives you an API key, but let's say none, which is rare, but let's say none. And here you will say person first, let's say, person first name. Oh, first name. And here, just as usual, you go to enroll deal. No, you go to the contact, which I think is already there. Hold on. Contact that is associated to the deal. And you go and you do first name, right? And you want to sell also like send also the person last name. Well, of course, you know this one, the same. Oops. Oh, this one is static. Hold on. These ones are statics. So actually it goes here. There we go. So contact. And I will add one more just to give you an example. Last name, right? Here is an example for association labels. Actually, maybe you don't want to just use the most recently updated. Maybe you just want to use the contact that is associated as the person who paid. Make sense? So if that's the case, you have an association label that says person who paid or payer or whatever it is. So maybe that deal has like 5 people because it's John Doe, Jane Doe, and 3 kids. But maybe Jane paid and she's the one who used her credit card. So you will use that association label and then you will find here as saying payer as payer. I don't know if that's the way to call it, sure. But payer person first name. That's how you use association labels along with this. So here, like the key, if there is one, you can include all the properties if you want. You save it, and boom. When you run it, every time this happens, you're getting a webhook. Okay, that's it. Clear, Andres. Feel free to ask another question if you have. Let me open this. In the meantime, okay, I guess it's clear. So I will continue super quick. Websites, HubSpot CMS advantage. I mean, of course WordPress is more affordable, 100%, but HubSpot is better, right? Why it's better? Because in WordPress, good luck trying to do A/B testing. You are going to be hacked for sure, just because it's WordPress and it's the most popular and therefore the most hacked platform in the world. Good luck trying to track everything because the best that you have there is maybe Elementor, which is a nice builder, and the plugin from HubSpot, but you're missing a ton of data there. Now, if you have it in HubSpot, besides that, it's faster, more secure. You also have like A/B testing built in. You also have like better tracking because it's happening in HubSpot. So, is it more expensive? Yes, it is. Is it better? Yes, it's also better. So, is this for everyone? No. If someone is just selling not enough or it's not like that big of a company, maybe not. Or maybe, I mean, it depends, right? So you will need to check case by case scenario. Something very important, and just to make it super clear, I added that here. This is very important. Before, I mean, I think it's still a beta. Let's see. HubSpot React CMS. I will show you something that everyone should know. HubSpot CMS React. Is it still in beta? Let's see. Not in beta anymore. That's good. So it was in beta until not long ago. This is a fantastic news. React is a framework, which is great. You can do a lot of things. You can do like now super cool websites with this, and now works with HubSpot. So you can code in React. That means like you are not that vendor locked because it's still React. So it doesn't mean like it will be like super easy to migrate. I mean, there will still like some work, but you can do much more now. So you can have like better websites faster. You can have more. A lot of developers know React, and they still need to use Hubble for some dynamic tags, but it's just like 10%. The fact that this uses React, in my opinion, should be a must-have for any future project that you have. So If your next HubSpot development project was not going to be with React and you are still in time to just do it, then 1000% do it. I mean, React is much better to not using it. So 100% use React if you can. Okay. Well, you can use custom modules and serverless functions. Okay. This is pretty much what you can do like in any good server. Okay. Commerce app integration. Remember, like, you can always connect with a ton of things like WooCommerce, Amazon. I mean, there are like a ton of things connect. Solution for different industries. Depends for what industry you will need to engage differently, but professional services, education, healthcare, nonprofit. You see how here you need HIPAA, but not here. In the US, nonprofit have like other regulations depending what they do. Education is very common in HubSpot and professional services as well. To summarize, you need to think in systems, right? Not in just fixing one thing, right? Just think as a system. Find the root cause of what is happening. Try to do future-proof design. That means think of what the client is asking you now, but think that this might change in the future. So how can you do something that solves your client problem now, but it's not going to be a problem in 5 years? Okay. So try to do it in a way that is future proof. Okay. And then user centered approach. As I said, you cannot force the real HubSpot users to fill out like 25 different fields just because you want good good reporting. I understand that you want good reporting, but if they don't use it, you won't have reportings at all. So you need to balance that. Okay. So you probably start as a HubSpot admin, then you got a solution architect, and then you probably end up being like a CTO or VP of operations. Learning resources, use the HubSpot, they're like the HubSpot developers documentation. The academy has like tracks that are like pretty cool. I will send you more later. And there is a blog that is quite nice. There is also like the HubSpot community forums that is very active. So I recommend you to use that one. I use that one as well. Some books that are pretty interesting that go beyond this, but data-driven marketing explains you how important it is to be data-driven in marketing. The finished project is like a novel. It's more for DevOps, but it's nice. Competing against lag is more like a framework. And good strategy, bad strategy. I haven't finished that one, but so far so good. If you in the next webinar, maybe I will know. Okay. What we covered today: T-shaped skills. Remember, you have like one thing that you really master, but it's like a T. So that means you know a lot of other things beyond just this. Okay. Client engagement, detective mindset. I mean, ask questions. Don't just execute. Ask questions. And usually, the first meeting that you will have with the client after they hire you is you interviewing them, not them asking you questions. It's you asking them, how do you work? How do you do this? A lot of you trying to get deeper into how they work. Layer thinking, and which is like dividing this in these 6 stages that I told you. The technical toolkit, which is knowing all the toolkits all the tools that you have, and then governance and adoption. I mean, try to make a plan that is realistic for them to adopt. Okay. Real world applications. You can use this for CRM implementation, system migrations. Mergers and acquisition is very common when this gets complicated and dirty very quickly, and complex automations. Okay. I will give you one last one here, which is a company. This one actually happened with us. So a company needs to migrate 25 million records from Marketo to HubSpot. How do we approach this massive undertaking? Do we export in the spreadsheet? How do we do that? I mean, 25 million records it's a thing. And I'm going to give the answer pretty quick. So if you guys want to write, that's your time. And I will tell you how we did this one. Okay. So you don't want and you can't export 25 million records in a spreadsheet. If you did that, you will find errors everywhere. Like 25 million records is a ton of data. So How we did that was with N8N, which is similar to Zapier or Make.com, but the difference is like you can host that and you're not limited by credits or by executions, scenarios, whatever. So you can throttle the migration and you just tell the tool to pull from the API, which is basically like an ETL, like extract, transform, and load. You extract the data, you transform it, and you load it. That's usually how you do it with tons of data. Okay. Or you can put it in Snowflake, but high level, that's it. Of course, you need to map the fields first. I'm just focusing on do not export in a spreadsheet. Just do that. Okay, so I went way beyond that. Sorry, it was like an hour and a half, but and I tried to summarize a lot of things. But the idea was to make like a 10 minutes coffee break. Here you have my email if you want to email me. I don't know if someone still has like energy, and you guys have like a particular scenario that you want to discuss here in public, right? This will be recorded. If you want, sure. If you don't, fine. I hope you like this webinar. This was like more like an introductory um, webinar for HubSpot Solution Architecture. This can go way longer than that. We are going to send you an email with sure, thank you, Andres. We're going to send you an email um, with like a survey for your feedback, and we're going to offer you an hour free consultation. My email is here, Andres. It's ariel@dreidel.com. I will put it here. There you go. So we're going to send you a survey. Um, and you're going to also, if you respond to the survey, you are going to get like an hour free consultation for whatever you are doing or for whatever your clients are doing, or maybe it's a client project. So we offer white label services. So if you guys need a helping hand, if you are an agency, if you're a partner of HubSpot and you need like a technical hand, um, we are going to support you on that, on a white label manner or not, as you wish. But I hope like you enjoy this. I hope like you found value. And that's it. So thank you guys. Have a good one, and see you in the next webinar. Thank you.